If you wanna make YouTube videos that have a high average view duration, you're gonna need B-roll. And if you're a solo content creator, you're gonna need to film that B-roll by yourself. This is something that I have heavily invested in my YouTube channel over the past couple of years, and it has really increased the quality of my video and my average view duration. Having more interesting, creative visuals just keeps your viewer engaged longer. And it also just makes you happier with the end product of your video. So today I am finally sharing my ultimate guide to building your own stock footage or B-roll library as a content creator. From planning to filming to organizing your files, I'm gonna take you through all of the steps, so let's get into it. And if filming all of this yourself stresses you out a bit, later in the video I'm gonna share a hack for getting high quality B-roll without having to pick up a camera, so stay tuned for that. First crucial step in building up your B-roll library is making a shot list. Honestly, the way that I've built up my own B-roll library is just slowly over time filming specific B-roll clips for specific videos and then organizing them in a larger folder for me to use again in the future. But if you're totally starting from scratch, then I highly recommend setting aside a day to capture 5 or 6 different B-roll scenes that you can then repurpose and use over and over again in your future videos. And to organize that whole operation, you're going to want to create a shot list before you set up your camera and just try to start filming. I actually went ahead and created a free B-roll shot list template that you can grab at the link in the description. It's basically a Notion table where you can add in different categories of B-roll that you want to capture. Plus, there's columns for every clip to remind you to grab 1 wide shot, 1 medium shot, and 1 close-up. And don't worry if you're not familiar with those terms, I'm going to show you exactly what wide, medium, and close-up look like in just a minute. I love capturing B-roll this way because it means that you're going to have more variety and more options for actually using those B-roll clips within a sequence. Really, it just gives you more options without having to film a million different scenes. You can capture like 5 different scenes, do 3 clips of each of them, and then all of a sudden you have 15 clips of B-roll that you can use. When you're planning this, you want to come up with different scenes that cover the topics and themes that you tend to talk about in your videos. Ultimately, that is what B-roll is for. It's a visual representation of the topics or themes that you're discussing in your videos. So think through the type of stuff that you tend to talk about in your videos and come up with a few ideas of how you can visually represent that through your B-roll. For example, if you often talk about confidence or self-care or mental health, then maybe you would capture some B-roll scenes of you journaling, lighting some candles, maybe doing some yoga. If you talk about fashion and beauty a lot, then maybe you'll capture some clips of you taking items out of your closet, organizing your makeup drawer, doing your skincare routine, or trying on an outfit in front of your mirror. There are limitless options really when it comes to the type of B-roll that you want to capture, and it doesn't always have to be literal. Sometimes you can just include a clip of like the vibe of something that you're talking about. Here's a bonus tip for you if you really want to level up your B-roll. As you're shooting, think about the emotions that you're portraying. I didn't used to really consider this when I was filming my B-roll, and so all of my clips were me just kind of looking generally like neutrally happy, which is fine. I think that's good for the most part, but every so often, in my videos I talk about feeling insecure, feeling frustrated, not knowing what to create. And so I started recording some B-roll clips of me looking like I didn't know what to say in front of the camera, or looking like I was really trying to come up with an idea, or just like looking sad and frustrated. Yes, this is really going to test your acting skills, but I promise it's super helpful because it's a little bit jarring if you're talking about feeling frustrated or upset and then the B-roll that you're showing is you looking really happy and chipper. So as you're planning your B-roll shots, maybe consider including 1 or 2 that portray certain emotions that you frequently talk about. Once you have your B-roll shot list written down, it's time to get out that camera and put those acting skills to work. Let's talk gear for a second. Normally, I'm shooting with my Sony ZV-E10 with my Sigma 16mm lens. When it comes to shooting B-roll, you don't really need to capture audio unless you're doing something specific and you want some kind of like ambient or environmental noise, but honestly, I just keep my Rode Video Micro on this camera pretty much all the time out of habit. it. So that's what I'm doing today. But generally you don't have to worry about the audio that much because you're mostly just gonna use it as silent clips. So today we are shooting a scene of me reading a book by the pool because I'm in my last few days of staying at this Airbnb. So I gotta soak it in before I go back to van life. Once we've established our scene, I like to start wide and then work my way into the medium and close-up shot. So you're just gonna set up your camera, kind of visualizing where you're going to be in the scene. Sometimes I like to use Sony's Imaging Edge app on my phone. It's really convenient because you can connect it via Wi-Fi to your camera, and then you can get a preview on your screen of what your camera is seeing, and you can even start and stop the recording from your phone as well. This is super helpful when you're filming clips of yourself because it means I can position myself in the scene and see how it's looking without having to run back and forth to the camera. But don't worry if you don't have that app or you don't have a camera that's compatible with it. For years, I've been doing the run back and forth to the camera thing and it works just fine. So you get your camera positioned where you kind of think it's gonna look good, and then you can just hit the record button, run into the scene, sit down and pose where you think you're gonna be for like 2 seconds, and then run back to the camera again. And then you can just preview that clip and see if it looks how you want it to look. Honestly, sometimes that Sony app can be a little bit glitchy, so I do this quite often as well. Okay, so once you know you're happy with your framing, you're gonna just hit record, run into the scene, sit down, and then just pose, act natural as much as you can for like 10 to 15 seconds. That's about how long you're gonna need. Really try your best to pretend that the camera's not there. Don't keep looking over and checking to see if it's recording. My general rule about B-roll is like, I'm not gonna look into the lens because then it kind of like breaks the fourth wall. I only look into the lens when I'm actually like talking to you. Okay, so once the 10 or 15 seconds are up, then you're just gonna go back and hit record again on your camera to stop the clip. Now that we've captured our initial wide shot, it's time to move the camera in and grab your medium and then your close-up shot. One thing I wanna note about this, the beginner temptation is gonna be just to move the camera forward a few feet to grab that medium shot. But I wanna encourage you, when you move the camera, don't just take 3 steps forward, actually change the angle and get a slightly different view on your scene. This is because if you only just move your camera forward a few feet, you're essentially gonna create a jump cut that may be a little bit jarring, especially if your movements don't exactly line up between your wide shot and your medium shot. Here's an example of what it looks like when you just cut directly from your wide shot to your kind of 3 steps ahead medium shot. And here's what it looks like when we cut between our wide shot and a medium shot that's been angled slightly differently. You can see it just feels a little bit more smooth and less jarring. And in general, it's just better to get more variety of shots. So keep that in mind when you're setting up your medium shot. Try to get a slightly different angle from your wide shot. Okay, so we're gonna repeat that process again. Hit the record button, jump into the scene, act for 10 to 15 seconds, and then get back up and stop your camera recording. Finally, we're gonna adjust our camera a 3rd time in the same scene for your close-up shot. So once again, I recommend shifting the angle slightly as well as getting closer to your subject. And again, just capture 10 to 15 seconds of your acting and then hit the record button again. So that is the general workflow. You pick a scene and you work through your wide, medium, and close-up, and then you can repeat that entire process again for the next scene that you want to capture. Okay, so you've captured your footage. Now it's time to store it somewhere in a way that you'll actually be able to find it again in the future when you need it. Welcome to the wonderful world of file organization. I am a huge nerd and I love this kind of thing. I'm just gonna give you very simple instructions rather than like pontificating on my philosophy around file organization and naming structures. We're gonna try to keep this actionable. Okay, so step 1, make a new folder and call it B-roll. If you think you're gonna have a few different major categories of types of B-roll, then now is a good time to make subfolders. Here's what mine looks like, for example. I talk about Instagram creation, so I've got a folder for that. I've got one for YouTube creation, working in my van, and lifestyle. So if you think you're gonna have a few major categories like that, I find it helpful to organize this B-roll folder a little bit further. Now you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna find that footage that you shot today and you're gonna actually bring it into one of those folders. So in my case, this reading by the pool is most relevant to lifestyle, so I'm gonna open up that folder, and then I'm just gonna select these clips and get them into my lifestyle folder. Okay, now obviously we want to name them so that we can search for them later. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename them to reading by the pool wide, reading by the pool medium, and reading by the pool close up. I do it like that specifically so that when I sort them by name, they'll actually show up together. Because like I was saying before, often if you have this variety of clips, you might want to use a few in conjunction with one another. Like let's say I'm talking about, oh, I took some time off, I was relaxing, I was reading by the pool. You know, it's more interesting for me to show two different angles of that rather than just one. Okay, so once you're done all of that, you can open up your Premiere Pro project file and you could click and drag in this entire folder. For me, I've already got this folder structure set up in my Premiere Pro project template. So as I add new clips to my B-roll library, I'll individually make sure to import them into that Premiere Pro file as well after I've renamed them. All right, so in this case, we've opened up my template here. I'm gonna open up my B-roll bin and go down to lifestyle and open that one up. Then I'll just open the Finder window where I have these clips, and I'll select them all and add them into my lifestyle folder. If you're diligent about this, you can make sure that your bins in Premiere always line up with your folders on your hard drive. Now, as I'm editing my video and I get to the point where I need a clip of me reading by the pool, I can just go over to my project window here and type in reading, and you'll see those clips all appear. So then I can drag it over to my source window. I can select the clip and the part of the clip that I need, and then really easily just drag that visual onto my timeline. It makes the editing process so smooth when you do this organization in advance. Okay, so sometimes you can't always film all of the B-roll clips that you might want to include in your videos. For example, maybe you want some aerial footage of the city that you're in, but you don't have a drone. Or maybe you're talking about your top travel destinations that are on your bucket list, and so you haven't personally filmed footage of the cities you're talking about yet. Or maybe it just doesn't make sense for you to invest the time to get up and shoot a time lapse of the sunrise for just like a 5-second clip in your video. I mean, if you want to do that, then you're very dedicated and I applaud you. But for the rest of us, I personally love using Storyblocks for those exact scenarios. Storyblocks really is the perfect B-roll solution for all content creators. I've been using Storyblocks for years to add more dynamic visuals to my videos. So Storyblocks is a stock media website. You can get access to tons of beautiful stock footage, background music, sound effects, animation templates, all with just one subscription. And with that one subscription, you can download as much content as you want, which makes it much more affordable than other sites that make you pay per clip. And you don't have to worry because that subscription includes the permission to use all of this media in your own work and in client work, so you never have to worry about getting content ID'd on YouTube. If you want to try out Storyblocks for yourself to make your videos more interesting, which I highly recommend you do, you can go to the link in the description or go to storyblocks.com/Katie. So you should now be ready to go out and capture all of the beautiful B-roll that you need to make your videos interesting. But filming is one thing and editing is entirely another. If you want my best tips for how to edit your videos so that you can keep your viewers watching to the very end, which is very important in the YouTube algorithm, then you should check out this video next, where I dive into all of my best vlog editing tips. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having adventures and following your dreams, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!